Waiting on it. Freak out. Oh, yeah, it's the Matty Daddy. I'm here on Wednesday night, Wednesday Delight. Start, sit. Cardinals, Packers. Yeah, we got a lot to get to, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm not here alone from the fantasy affair. Yeah, my hat's coming off. Elizabeth, you see that? The hat's coming off. Let's keep it going, though, because I got two guests. 1, 2, 2, 1. Let's get them going. We got a guy off of his honeymoon. You remember our honeymoon, Elizabeth? I don't think you did. Let's talk to the playmaker, the fantasy football playmaker. This guy is kicking ass and taking names. He's with the Dynasty Dorks. He is all over the fantasy football community, and I'm ready to freak out because we got the Popes on the channel, yeah, for the fantasy affair. Popes, how we doing, brother?
Oh, we're doing. Not as excited as you, apparently. You're pretty amped over there.
Pretty amped. I got you on my show. Been a long time overdue, man. How was the honeymoon? Let's hear about it. You have a good time? You consummate the marriage? You do it all right?
A good man doesn't tell, so I'm not. But I did drink a lot, and I did have a good time. And I'm ready to get back into it. I'm honored to be on, and I'm excited.
Love it, dude. I'm digging it. I'm digging the Bills Mafia vibe I'm getting right now.
Oh, it's a vibe.
But Jeremy, I feel like you got to get that hot tag, brother. I feel like we need another guest, because if not, these mega powers just might explode. Yeah, I'm talking Jeff Bell. We're talking the Debbie Royal Fantasy Pros. Freak out. This guy is everywhere and anywhere in between. Yeah. Let's talk Jeff Bell.
Yo, Matty. Good to see you.
Woo! How we doing, Jeff?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited to be here. You know, I appreciate your show. I appreciate you. I'm excited to be here with Jeremy. We are definitely representing Bills Mafia here, and so that's exciting to see. You know, I've got it behind me. Jeremy's got it behind him, and we both got it in our hearts, and we are ready to go. Talk about some football. Talk about whatever else may come up, certainly. And you know, it's a good Wednesday night.
It's a perfect Wednesday night,
guys. If you haven't been on the show, it's Start, Sit, Starts. We're doing Thursday night preview. We're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. These guys are rock stars on Wednesday night. That's hump day, and they're here. Instead of humping, they're pumping out fantasy football content. So let's get it started, brothers. Let's get it started with Jeff. Yeah, quarterbacks. Who are we starting at the quarterback position?
You know, contrary to popular belief, there's a player that I still believe is pretty good at football, and that is Patrick Mahomes. You know, everybody's kind of off on him. That it seems like everything is possibly going wrong that could lately. He had his worst game of his career last weekend, and I've seen questions about, should I start Jalen Hurts over Patrick Mahomes? You know, should I start Matt Stafford over Patrick Mahomes? Just any other random questions that you could think of. And I'm telling you right now, start Patrick Mahomes. You know, he's playing Monday night against the Giants. He's a primetime game. He's going to go out there and he's going to remind everybody just who exactly he is. Both as a Bills fans, we can relate. He tore our heart out last year in the AFC Championship game. We've seen this time and time again, and I'm not buying the recency bias of he's just had a bad game or two and the entire league's figured him out. We've seen guys before. We saw Aaron Rodgers several years ago. You remember the RESP or the what was it? It was relax, the RELAX, when they started out, I think 0-3, and he came back and had a massive season. We've seen guys go up and down, but I think that Patrick Mahomes is due to remind everybody on Monday Night Football that he is Patrick Mahomes.
Monday Night Delight. Yeah, Monday Night Football. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Mahomes? Are people panicking a little too much?
Yeah. It's still Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you have a small stretch like Jeff had alluded to. It happens. We've seen it. I mean, we all thought Josh Allen had regressed in the first, couple games of the season this year. And since then, he's been on a tear. So I'm not sure what it is. It just seems like he's almost playing a little bit too much superhero football. He needs to tone it down a little bit and just go back to what he's done that's worked so well. It just seems like he's as sad as it sounds, but he's trying too hard, and I think that Andy Reid has the power and capability to kind of settle him down, and they'll right their ship. I mean, it's the Chiefs. We've seen it for how long now that they're just on another level, and I don't think you should be starting anybody over Patrick Mahomes because not a single person at the quarterback position, except maybe Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, have the upside that Patrick Mahomes has week in and week out. I know that he's busted, but I mean, it's every fantasy player, every person you start always has that potential. But he's pretty bust proof. And I'm with Jeff. If you're thinking about benching Patrick Mahomes, just don't do it.
This is a perfect opportunity for it. Oh yeah. Love it. Love it, Jeff. I'm trying to say in Macho Man voice, but it's so hard. Let's keep it going. Let's talk a quarterback 2 streamer. My pick of the night. You look at all these quarterbacks and you're like, who's going to be the guy to put up QB1 numbers? I'm going Matt Ryan versus Carolina. Yeah, 10 touchdowns. He's been kicking butt over the last 4. This is a guy we saw come alive, 336-2 versus the Dolphins. Falcons are starting to get healthy. I kind of like this. Darnold is the damsel in distress in Carolina. This is the perfect opportunity for Matt Ryan to be a QB start of the week. Yeah. Any thoughts on Ryan here? Jeff, you went Mahomes. Let's talk Ryan for a minute. Carolina's defense has been a little stingy. But we've also seen Darnold have to be put with a diaper the last couple weeks. You think Matt Ryan might be a good streamer here?
No, I love it. Early in the season, I think that we looked at age and we looked at him struggling early, and everybody kind of wrote him off as, is he done? Is it time that the Falcons need to move on from him? But the reality of it is he was operating in a brand new offensive scheme from Arthur Smith coming in as head coach. They were relying on Mike Davis, and it kind of seems like he's being phased out in favor of Cordell Patterson now. And so you'll love to see that because that guy's a phenomenal athlete. Ryan, exactly like you mentioned, over the last 3 games, he's really picked up. And the Falcons are a team that early in the season, I believe they started out 0-3, but right now tied for the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs. They're right there. And so everybody kind of wrote him off early, wrote off Matt Ryan as being at that stage of his career where the decline is coming. And he might be there, but we've seen much better play of late as he's settled in and gotten comfortable in the new offense. And we've seen much better play from the Falcons as well.
Absolutely. Popes, tell me about these weapons. Ridley, Patterson, Davis. Pitts is lighting up like a pistol. Yeah. Do you think this is a good opportunity for Matt Ryan to capitalize?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a weapons standpoint, I think that you could argue he has a middle of the road weapons. I mean, Calvin Ridley's a top-notch wide receiver. He's proven it. This year he's kind of downturned. But I think the biggest story that you could argue too is like we saw and like Jeff had alluded to earlier on into the season, it was kind of a little bit of a struggle, but it was a struggle for their new main focus in that offense, which is Kyle Pitts. And we knew it was going to take some time. The tight end position's historically been hard to understand or to learn and transition from CFB to the NFL. However, Kyle Pitts has seemed to make that jump as of late. And we've seen it, like you alluded to, Maddie. He just kind of started to explode the last couple of weeks. And he's really that focal point. I mean, Calvin Ridley, as sad as it is, we all thought it was going to be his time and it was going to be his breakout. But it seems like they want it to be Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley is almost an afterthought. And I think now that there's been a connection made more so with Matt Ridley and Kyle Pitts, you saw it last week when he was just tossing balls up deep down the field and trusting Kyle Pitts to make the play, and Kyle Pitts has started to do that. Kyle Pitts has become the Julio Jones that they traded away. So for me, the weapons are there. And like Jeff had also alluded to, Cordell Patterson's exploded and just become a complete weapon. So for me, the offense is there. Matt Ryan's going to have that. I do worry a little bit with Carolina, but they're kind of hurt at the defensive back position. So I could definitely see it being where Matt Ryan definitely exceeds what the consensus will have him at this week. So
I can dig it. I can dig it a lot. Before we get to the sits, I got somebody from YouTube. Yeah, Adam James. It's the Matty Daddy. Am I good to ask questions here? You got Popes. You got Jeff Bell on the screen. These are guys you want to ask the questions because they have the answers. You won't be on the outside looking in, brother. Go ahead and ask what you got, James. Till we get your question, let's talk QB sits. Jeff, I gotta know, who were you sitting on the pine this week, brother?
Goodness, Maddie, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't even. Let me look at the schedule real quick. I apologize.
I'll go with mine. I got an easy
give me
one.
yours. Give me yours. I'm sorry.
This is like icing on the cake, brother. This is Mac Jones versus the Chargers. He hasn't played good on the road. Chargers are good against quarterbacks, only giving up 17 a game. We saw him poop the bed against the Jets in Houston week 2 and week 5. I'm not putting all my eggs in the Mac Jones basket as a rookie. Week 8. Little streamer appeal? Not up in here, Mackie. Jeff, are you starting rookie quarterbacks?
God, it's been so rough. You know, as a Devy guy, I was really excited about this class. And, you know, Justin Fields was a guy that I was really high on. I was really hoping that we'd see Trey Lance early because I think he has great fantasy potential. Trevor Lawrence, I thought that he'd be able to do a little bit more with his legs. We just haven't quite seen that yet. And so I love that sit for you. I think that's a great call. The guy that I'm going to go with would be, I think, Baker Mayfield facing the Steelers. I don't know that you're really playing him before, but with the injury, he just can't hit your lineup, I don't think, because that Pittsburgh, you know, the defense that they're going to bring there, it's been questionable about Baker's performance of late. And so coming off, if he is able to play, don't rush him back into the lineup and give it another week.
Give it another week. Just take a chill pill. Jeremy, what's up with these quarterbacks that are rookies, though? I want to talk Trevor Lawrence because this guy's going up against Seattle, who's been trash, but it is at Seattle. Is this a guy you're feeling comfortable streaming week 8? Or because it is at Seattle, maybe you're pumping the brakes. He's not getting the touchdowns. Let's just say Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I personally still believe a lot in Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I would hope most people still do. It's normal for rookie quarterbacks to struggle. I think that as of late, some of these rookies that have come out, people expect so much so early. But I would honestly consider starting Trevor Lawrence this week. I think I have him as like a low-end QB2 right now. At the moment, I might change it before Sunday. But I like the matchup. I think Seattle brings an opportunity for him to produce points. They have been weak, especially against the run and the pass. So they should be able to move the ball, hopefully. But like you said, playing in Seattle is a whole different story. Him being a rookie, it's definitely going to have concern to it. I wouldn't if I play him, I'm not feeling overly excited about it, but the upside's definitely there. So depending on who my roster consists of, like say I had Baker Mayfield and Trevor Lawrence, and obviously Baker Mayfield most likely may either miss or is, like Jeff alluded to, should be someone you might want to pump the brakes on. I would start Trevor Lawrence there and feel okay about it. But I'm not like rushing to start him, but I wouldn't fault you if you felt confident enough to start him. Do you know what I'm saying?
All right, let's rewind it for a minute because the Macho Matty Daddy's all over the place. We just talked Baker Mayfield as they sit this week, Mr. Bell. Dynasty. Is he a sell or is he a buy? You do Devy Royale. Is this a guy you're willing to pivot, get off of for a future first and maybe a piece? Are you holding Baker and hoping there's sunnier days ahead?
I think that at this point, Baker Mayfield has shown us who he is. He's more in that game manager mold, I think, than what we were really hoping coming out of Oklahoma. You watch him in college, he was doing a lot more with his legs than it's not translating to the NFL in terms of fantasy points. He's just not that type of athlete that's able to get upfield and get you yards at that end. We know what this offense is. They want to run through the running backs and be conservative with it, keep him on schedule. And so I just don't, as of right now, I don't see like the pop coming where he's going to be a quarterback one. If I can get off in Dynasty, it's the type of thing in Dynasty where if somebody's worried about an Aaron Rodgers or something like that, and you're able to do that and maybe even get something back. Or if somebody's worried about Ryan Tannehill's start and they're worried about Ryan Tannehill's age, I think that there's just higher ceilings for those guys if you are able to get other pieces, because we know the value put in Dynasty on young quarterbacks and where these guys go in startup drafts, where the value is in trades. And so it's one of those that if you can pivot to a guy that is going to give you 3, 4, 5 years more productivity at a higher level than Baker Mayfield, the reality is, I think a lot of people, especially in quarterbacks in Dynasty, you're worried about, well, I've got a 25-year-old, but you should be thankful if your league is still going on in 10 years. And, I think that it's certainly you want to set yourself up to be successful at that level, but it's okay to pivot to a Ryan Tannehill who might give you a 5-year window versus maybe an 8 to 10-year window for Baker, but at a higher productivity level.
Absolutely. That's why we're asking the Devy Royal guy. Yeah. Let's keep it going, guys. We're getting questions, YouTube questions. 16-team Dynasty. Calvin Ridley for Eckler. Are you making this move, Popes? Let's say you're a contender.
Yeah. I love Calvin Ridley. I think that I'm not saying Calvin Ridley's dead. I don't think that the upside's gone necessarily. But Austin Eckler's proven if he's healthy, he's a top 5 running back. And anytime I can acquire a top 5 running back, no matter how many of them I have, I'm in on it. Wide receivers, yeah, you can argue that the high end volume isn't necessarily there, but we had alluded to earlier, Kyle Pitts has kind of started to take that, and Calvin Ridley's just kind of turning into a very talented wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside, very Chris Godwin-esque. So for me, I'm taking Eckler easily, especially in a 16 team. Usually it's pretty hard to acquire running backs, so I would.
All right, Jeff, bell the ball, brother. Ridley, Eckler, you're competing. You're 6-1. You've got Ridley right now. You're stacked up, or let's just say you've got Ridley right now. Are you willing to make this dynasty investment in Eckler?
Dynasty, I find myself a little bit more hesitant, just in the way that I always just struggle to trade for running backs in Dynasty, to give up proven productive wide receivers, and Ridley's 26, and so I don't know, I see concerns that he's Juju Smith-Schuster without Julio Jones on the other side. But if that were remotely true, then what's he going to be with Kyle Pitts on the other side? I would think that he's going to be perfectly fine there. And so Ridley's a guy that I think Jeremy valued him correctly in that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 range. He's a guy early in the season, I thought he was going to be wide receiver 2. I thought they were just going to pepper him with targets, and it certainly has turned out that that's not the case. but he did miss a game and he had some situation that he was dealing with. So there's some questions there that as they grow in the new offense, like we mentioned with Matt Ryan, in Dynasty, I'm still going to hold Calvin Ridley just because I don't know when the wheels are falling off on Eckler, and that always concerns me on running backs.
All right. Well, he's got another trade opportunity here. He's got Ridley for Henderson and Fournette. I don't know if this sounds better or not, but we also have to remember Henderson and Fournette are playing lights out right now. Popes, are you the Eckler fan? Are you the Ridley fan or the Hendo and Fournette fan?
I'm probably holding Ridley in this situation. For me, Henderson and Fournette are purely a situation based. Had Cam Akers never gotten hurt, Henderson would never have had the season he's having now. And I feel like they still want Cam Akers to be the guy. So as long as Cam Akers comes off, even at 80% of what he was, I still think he's better than Darrell Henderson. So I think he takes that back over. And Leonard Fournette is at that point of the wheels possibly falling off. He's the same age as Ridley. I think he's 26, right? Turning 27 soon. So another product of the situation. And how long is Tom Brady going to be there once he's gone? That could turn real dicey in Tampa Bay. So I'm holding Ridley here. Just the long-term value, especially in Dynasty, would be definitely on Calvin Ridley's side here, for me, at least.
You feeling the same way, Jeff? Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy hit it great, and I feel the same way. If this is a redraft trade, and you've like hit on Debo or Mike Williams, and you've got one of these later wide receivers, and you really need the running back depth, then I think it's a great move for you. But in Dynasty, this just isn't the type of thing that I consider, because I think we've got great current year value for Henderson and Fournette, but it's one of those that would you be able to do the same trade with a first round pick or something like that you're going to have a later first, and would the people that want to get off of these running backs happily take a first, buying that future rookie value? And I'll tell you right now, as the Devy guy, if I have a later first right now and I can turn it into something that can help me win a championship this year and maybe get some value next year, I'm going to do that deal, because I'm feeling like I'm landing like 8 or 9 deep on this class. And then it's not even like last year where you're grabbing Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle at the turn. You're grabbing the Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle at like the 5 or 6 this year, I feel like. So it's one of those that the 22, I think there's good prospects in the 22 class, and it's gotten a lot of hate lately, but it's going to fall off towards the back end. And I'd rather use a first than Calvin Ridley in this deal.
Yeah, even in Superflex this year, I agree with Jeff. Like in Superflex, the quarterbacks aren't going to help you. Last year, the quarterbacks helped push those talented receivers and stuff back. This year, you're not going to get that help. So,
look at these Devy guys giving you guys a little sneak peek of the offseason. That's why you listen to the Fantasy Football Playmakers and Devy Deep Dive, because they are too sweet. Let's keep it going, Adam. Giving you guys some props. You guys are killing it. Love the content. Keep it coming, dudes. Thank you, Adam. Make sure you subscribe, brother. Let's get another one, a little start-sit action. We got Tua against the Bills Mafia. Teddy Two Gloves against Washington. And who's Wentz going? I should know this off the top of my head.
Tennessee.
Juicy matchup. Tennessee's terrible. But we're not going to go there. Jeff, let's start with you, man. Is Wentz the option here? Do you play Tua against the Bills, Teddy against Washington? What's your call?
I think it's Wentz. He's played very well lately, and so he's got the weapons around him. I think that Tennessee game could very well turn into a shootout. Certainly, we saw them play well against Patrick Mahomes, and that might worry you, but this hasn't been a very giving defense in terms of fantasy opponents through the last however many years it seems like now. Tua, I'm not going into that Bills. That I feel like that is a hornet's nest that's waiting to come down on the Dolphins, because that team went into the bye and they were not happy about the loss. That defense has been playing phenomenally. We saw them shut out the Miami the first time around. Teddy might be interesting because the Washington matchup, I think, is the best matchup out of any of these three. But it's just the ceiling is just so low on Teddy. I just feel like it. Maybe he gets a couple touchdowns to Sutton or Jerry Jeudy coming back. But it's just there's no rushing upside there, and there's just not any. I'm still going with Wentz.
I can dig it. I can dig it a lot. Jeremy, are you thinking the same thing with Wentz, or are you getting a little crazy over there?
Nah, I'm probably at Wentz too. By a slim margin on Teddy. I agree. Wentz has been playing pretty lights out. The Colts have looked a lot better. They're getting Jonathan Taylor involved, establishing the run, taking those deep shots to Pittman. I believe T.Y. Hilton missed practice today, but I do think that I saw a couple people that I know on Twitter were talking that Hilton, I think, is expected to play still, which will definitely be a boost to that passing game. So Tennessee's just really bad at giving up points to wide receivers. Not so much quarterbacks, but they're still bottom 10, I believe. So for me, I'm in on Wentz. Just I think the upside's a lot higher there. Jeff was definitely right. The Washington matchup's definitely the best in the quarterback position to points allowed for Teddy. But the upside's severely capped. Like you said, he's a very safe start in a super flex for like a second quarterback. I would definitely don't hate starting Teddy against Washington. But Tua I'm avoiding. Not that it was anything to gloat because it was an injury, but Tua didn't look good. He only looked good in the last two games against very bad teams. And now going against the Bills, like Jeff had said, they need to get it back on track. It's supposed to be stormy here, pretty rainy. And we barely saw him in that first matchup, but we saw what the Bills defensive line did to that offensive line, and then which resulted in Tua's injury, unfortunately. But again, I think he's in for another long day against the Bills. So I'm off on Tua, even though he's had two good games.
Tua. Let's keep it going. Let's talk RB start. Popes, you just talked us off Tua. Who are you talking us onto at the running back position? Oh, yeah. Got to keep it going. Sorry. Yep.
All right. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I figured, the big names are pretty obvious. But one filling in for a semi-big name is Kenneth Gainwell. He is a rookie, and I know it's a little dicey to start the rookies. But right now, Miles Sanders had the week-to-week designation. And for me, getting it this week kind of pretty much guarantees he's not playing this week. There is that chance that he does. But even if he does, he should probably be pretty limited. And in his limited opportunities already, Gainwell's already proven that he can handle a decent workload. He produces off of 33%. I think he averages 33% of a snap share over the first 7 weeks, and he's producing 9 points per game, which is a decent flex depending on how deep your lineup is. And now if Sanders misses, I expect Gainwell to see a majority of the touches. I'm sure Boston Scott will get sprinkled in. And as long as Gainwell can hold on to the ball, he did fumble in the last game, so that's a little bit of a concern because after that, I believe he kind of got benched to an extent. We saw a lot more Boston Scott. But either way, his PPR upside is really high. So I'm in on starting Gainwell, especially against Detroit, who's 5th worst in points allowed to running back position this year in fantasy and PPR. So I'm in on, I think he's a pretty safe RB2 play. Like I said, aside from a fumble or something disastrous that causes him to get benched, I think he should definitely do well against Detroit this week.
Let's keep talking Gainwell for a second. Jeff, coming out of Memphis, running back university, I always have to talk Henderson. I have to talk Gainwell because I am a Memphis Tiger at heart. I'm from Memphis, but I'm also kind of biased because of that. So tell me kind of your thoughts of Kitty Gainwell coming out, and then just kind of tell me his kind of role right now.
Yeah, he's just a lighter guy. I think that size is a concern with him. I think measured in at 205, I believe, is the heaviest that I've seen him listed, and I've seen him listed less than that. And so you watch him play, and he's not a bigger back that he'll get touches. But the thing of it is he can be productive off 10 touches, and so that's the type of thing where I can see it, and I think that I like that play a lot because he's going to get work. We've seen him in the passing game. And so that's really, especially when I'm in these backfields that are committee backfields or a little bit uncertain usage, I want the back that I know is going to get the passes. Boston Scott worries me a little bit because we've seen him in the past be productive, especially handle a workload. And so I'm slightly concerned that I'm excited for Kenny Gainwell, but I'm worried that we're going to see a little bit of Boston Scott steps right into Miles Sanders' role, and Gainwell's role doesn't change all that much. Is my only concern. If you're playing him, it's one of these things that you're at the point of the season with injuries that we've dealt with a couple of bye weeks this week. He's a guy you're going to start, and I think that's a good call from Jeremy's end because the reality is he's going to be one of your better lineup plays. But it's I'm hesitant to go head over heels like I think a lot of fantasy community has gone on him, just because I think that I could see they don't run the ball and we're complaining about Miles Sanders not touching the ball like he should. Jalen Hurts grabs those, and we've seen Boston Scott be productive.
I can dig it. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little RB starts. Nothing crazy here, but Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, they're going up against each other. San Francisco, Chicago. These are two guys that are getting the workload recently. Both, to me, these are starts over like a Myles Gaskin versus Buffalo. People like that might have a little bit more hit or miss potential. Just kind of more your locked and loaded RB2s with RB1 weeks, upside, whatnot. Jeremy, do you have a sit for us at the RB position?
Yeah, I'm Jeff alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I'm out on Mike Davis at this point. Cordell Patterson's kind of started to emerge as the guy they really want to get in that backfield. He just creates a bigger matchup problem for the linebackers or the defense in general, whoever they decide to cover, because he is a former wide receiver. He does run better routes. So Mike Davis has kind of fallen off. At the beginning of the season, he was a solid flex play. The first 5 weeks of the season, he averaged 10 points in PPR leagues. But we saw it coming out of the bye. He only had 1 point and 4 attempts on the ground against Miami. I don't know if it was game script, if it's just because Miami's defense was a little bit stronger. They kind of just went with Cordell Patterson because he was the one who was kind of making the plays happen. But again, I feel like Mike Davis is going to be kind of phased out of this offense to an extent. And he's just never had an upside. He's just a safe floor play at the end of your lineup. And it's just, for me, I'm going to chase somebody like you had mentioned. If I managed to get Elijah Mitchell, if I managed to get Khalil Herbert, even Kenny Gainwell, these are guys that I'm going to start because the upside's much higher than Mike Davis this week, especially against, against Carolina, who's a strong run defense. So I just kind of am out on it. I feel like they're going to use Patterson because he creates that harder matchup, especially against a stout front seven in Carolina. So
RB is a tough situation because you have these players like Jamal Williams, Melvin Gordon that you're like, oh, well, they're getting snap share, but they're just not doing it. So you kind of lean on that snap share, the carries, but the production's not there. So it's good to kind of humble people on the Mike Davises, the other players like that kind of just don't show it. Let's keep it going because the questions are coming in. Zachary from Facebook. Golly, this must be a little league. Hopkins, Mike Williams, Thielen, Devontae Smith, and Cobb. We have the COVID stuff going on. So that's a Thursday night situation. But Hopkins, we're going to get to the preview of the game. He has been on fire. Williams has been a little bit down. Thielen's been kind of up and down. Smith, we're all waiting for it. Let's go to you first, Jeff. 2 out of 3. What are you doing here, brother?
Who do the Eagles have this week?
Detroit.
Okay. Ooh.
Detroit Rock City.
Yeah, so I'm playing DeAndre Hopkins on Thursday Night Football. I think that Jair Alexander, I believe, is on IR. I think he's out. So I think Hopkins is – we haven't seen the target share that we want to see out of Hopkins, but it's really hard to sit him in the lineup when he's attached to Kyler Murray and you know what the upside is out of his productivity and the offense. So he's one that I'm going to go with. Mike Williams, I'm still going to roll with Mike Williams. I think that the Patriots could slow him down potentially, but again, that's another upside play because we've seen him be a top 5 wide receiver through most of the season, and so the ability to have a big game out of him is certainly there. And I would probably still defer to Thielen. Devonta Smith, especially with Miles Sanders going out against Detroit, does intrigue me, and I think that's worth investigating. But Thielen's playing the Cowboys, and that's another game that could go back and forth. And I just think that I feel a little bit safer with Thielen at this point than Devonta. I think that there's a chance that we saw him disappear a couple weeks ago when everybody was kind of on him on that Thursday night game against the Buccaneers. And so I think that that's where I go with the first three options here: DeAndre, Mike Williams, and Adam Thielen.
All right, Popes, man, you're up, brother. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jeff pretty much nailed most of that. DeAndre Hopkins, especially with J.R. Alexander, Green Bay kind of loses its edge in the passing game defensively. So I like DeAndre Hopkins. You drafted him so high anyways to begin with, even if it's dynasty. You've spent a lot to get DeAndre Hopkins, so I'm starting him. The big week hasn't been there, but we know it's coming. We've seen it in the past. Mike Williams has been too good not to start. New England, like Jeff alluded to, could slow him down, but they still have Keenan Allen. They still have other weapons you have to worry about. So, and it also being in Los Angeles helps a little bit, I feel like, for Mike Williams. And he's a touchdown. He's a red zone guy. He's an end zone target guy. So for me, it's the touchdown upside's way more for Mike Williams than it is for Cobb or Devontae Smith. And I like Adam Thielen a lot this week. Like Jeff had said, that game should be back and forth. Kirk Cousins in the last 2 years, I saw a stat earlier. In the last 2 years, he hasn't thrown an interception yet against Dallas. So I'm probably going to be that guy. I'm going to knock on wood because, I just jinxed him. But Thielen isn't going to get covered by Trayvon Diggs most likely, where Justin Jefferson will. So Kirk Cousins is probably going to look to his old faithful in Adam Thielen. So I like the Thielen start. But if you really want to and get a little dicey, Devontae Smith's definitely interesting. Definitely a good matchup. Detroit's really hurt on the back end. But I just still can't trust Jalen Hurts in that offense as far as enough passing volume to really give you a high upside. I think he could get to double digits, but I think Thielen could give you 30 points again this week. So I'm going to shoot all upside and just take, like Jeff had said, Hopkins, Mike Williams, and Adam Thielen.
Ooh. See, but you make me want to start Devontae Smith at the same time over Thielen because I get risky. That little bit of that glimpse of like, hey, starting that third receiver, I want that up. So I'm not saying Thielen's wash, baby, but there's times. But at the same time, Hopkins, Williams, I might be a little crazy and start Smith over Thielen if I've got a receiving core like this, just for the fact that they're playing Detroit. I like it, though. Zach, thanks for the question, brother. Yeah.
Well, and I do think that
all right, let's get
just real quick, you've got DeAndre Hopkins going on Thursday night. And so if he has a big game, I feel like I'm a little bit safer with Thielen. If he lays an egg, I think Devonta Smith is the upside play, like you mentioned.
I love it. And that's exactly what Zach said. That glimpse has killed me every week. I appreciate it, though, fellas.
Yeah, and even check your other team's lineup. The team you're playing, maybe they have a Raiders heavy team or a Ravens heavy team, and you might not need as much upside as you think, in which then I'm going to sit out Devontae Smith. But if I need to shoot real upside, I wouldn't fault you for trying to take Devontae Smith over Thielen.
Can I ask you guys a one-question answer? A yes or a no? I'm going to go to you first, Jeff. Jalen Hurts is the future quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles.
No.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm on the no side too.
Okay. Good to talk about. Some people need to hear that in Dynasty, even though we're doing start sits. Yeah. Jeremy, do you have any more sits at RB for us? You said Mike Davis. I think we're ready to move on to receivers. This is where Jeff comes in with the cream of the crop. Yeah. You got a receiver start for us, Jeff?
I'm ready for tight ends, bud. I thought that you,
oh, my bad. Well, let me go to receiver start. Michael Pittman versus Tennessee. We saw Buffalo's receivers. I must have written this down. I don't know what I'm doing. Too much going on up here. I'm going to put the hat on. That's way better. Or is it? Yeah. No, I just look like a Bonesaw or whatever his name is. Guys, Pittman versus Tennessee. We've been seeing the target share. We see Hilton hurt. We saw 4 for 105 and a touchdown. We saw a touchdown. If I'm starting Wentz, I want that Pittman stack. Wide receiver 21 on the season. I feel like we're getting glimpses, and I feel like the top's about to pop off with Michael Pittman. And Tennessee's a smash spot. Jeremy, Michael Pittman this week, how's this feel at the receiver position?
Yeah, I'm all in on it. He's actually one of my starts too. In my article over at Yards Per. I'm all in on Michael Pittman this week. I think the matchup against Tennessee is very juicy. We saw the Bills produce a lot against Tennessee. We saw even Tyreek Hill had a big touchdown against Tennessee too, right? I'm not crazy there. I think so. But Michael Pittman's kind of the deep ball guy. They've established a run game. They come off that play action. Wentz likes to throw it deep. We saw the quote today. Wentz likes to throw it deep, and Michael Pittman likes to go deep. So for me, I'm in on it. Like you said, you kind of seen glimpses so far this season. He's kind of been like a little bit of like a big week, off week, big week, off week. So in theory, the pattern, he should kind of have a dud, but I don't think he's going to get it. I think we're starting to see that production, and I think that he is going to make that next step again this week, and I think he could have the upside of a 20-plus point game. So I'm shooting it, especially if T.Y. Hilton misses. If T.Y. Hilton doesn't, I'm going to temper my expectations a little bit, but I think he finds the end zone and definitely gets you at least double-digit points this week. So,
whoa, get me hype. Jeff, any other receivers maybe we should keep an ear to the wall for?
Coming back off injury, I'm excited for Jerry Jeudy. We talked about Teddy Bridgewater's matchup against Washington earlier. This defense has given up. I believe it's leading the league in points to wide receivers that it's given up. We saw week 1, the connection between Teddy Bridgewater and Jerry Jeudy. He looked like he was the true primary number 1 wide receiver with the Broncos. Some of that might have been Cortland Sutton kind of easing back in. But if Jerry Jeudy's healthy, he's on the field, he's ready to go. I think they were a little bit extra cautious with that injury. And so everything that I've seen is he's 110%. And I think that he's going to have a huge week against Washington.
I can dig it a lot. I'm so excited. I'm excited for Jeudy for just all around, like since 2 years ago, how hyped we've been for this guy. And it's been Drew Lock, it's been Bridgewater, it's been that glimpse of week 1 of just that greatness. And now we've been waiting. Slow burn. It's like Jeff's like, baby, I'm going to work. Put on a roast. It's time to go, baby. It's week 8. We're there. We made it. There's so many dang receivers, too. There's like 40 good ones, like Emmanuel Sanders. I'm still starting Emmanuel Sanders everywhere. I don't want to bench this guy. Things like that. Receivers is tough. So let's talk, guys. We got a bench, guys. Let's talk receivers we don't want to start. Mine circles back to going against the Chargers. They got that stout pass defense. We've seen Henry. We've seen other guys involved. I'm not going Jacoby Myers this week. I just don't feel it. I don't feel like Mac Jones is going to have that fire, that desire. So I'm sitting Myers. I don't want to play with fire, and I don't want to get burnt. And, of course, A-Rob's on the list every week. He's just an automatic sit at this point. Jeff, is there somebody I'm missing here at receiver sit that maybe people are interested in that might want to start that they shouldn't?
Brandon Cooks, they're going up against the Rams, and so Jalen Ramsey on the opposite side, Davis Mills at quarterback. That's just one of those that – God, that feels like, they traded Mark Ingram today, and Brandon Cooks had a tweet. He sounds like he's very upset with the situation, and maybe the greasy wheel gets fed. But at the same time, I could just see Jalen Ramsey completely taking him out of the game. Davis Mills struggling to get anything going against Aaron Donald and that defense. And the Rams just pouring it on, similar to what we saw maybe with the Giants and Panthers last week, where the Panthers score like 5 points or whatever it was. And so it just could be very bad for the Texans. And I think the Cardinals kind of did the same thing to the Texans. That was the 33-5 game, if I remember correctly. And so I'm just out on this Texans offense against the Rams.
Well, I think you mentioned a great thing right there. Mentally, if you're mentally fatigued and you're having to deal with the outgoings of an organization, does that mean and you're playing against Ramsey? This might be a spot that either you take yourself out of the game mentally because there's so much else going on around you. I think that's a great call, Jeff. I think that's something a lot of people see Brandon Cooks, regardless of matchup, they're like targets, opportunity, smash start. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with the Ingram trade, with everything. You're kind of our rumor and innuendo guy now. As we keep talking wrestling, now I'm out of the Macho Man gear, yet I'm still talking about it. Yeah.
The dirt sheets. Yeah, that's me.
The dirt sheets. Yeah. Everybody loves a dirt sheet. Let's talk the dirtiest sheets in the building, the tight ends, because these are gross. I mean, when I said tight end sit or tight end start, I was like, well, you're starting the good ones, and then after like 3 or 4 of them, they're all sits, but you got to start them. So tell us.
You could not.
Jeremy,
you could just go with 0.
Tight end start. Who are you going with?
I went real deep. I'm going Gerald Everett. I liked him coming out this year. And I think that we saw him kind of in the beginning of the season, he was a little bit more involved. He kind of had the COVID stint where he missed 2 weeks. And last week he got a little bit more involved. But the past 2 games, he's had 6 targets, which isn't a lot, but we're talking about tight ends here. He's only produced 50 yards, but Pete Carroll was really in on Gerald Everett this offseason. He had a lot of good things to say. He's definitely very talented athletically. His profile is very good. And I think just the matchup against the Jaguars is pretty prime, especially when you're looking at a tight end landscape, like you had said, that's pretty gross. And a lot of these guys that kind of came out, like a Dawson Knox is out this week. Mark Andrews is out this week. Darren Waller's out this week. Mike Gesicki gets the Bills, which isn't necessarily the best. So like some of these guys that you might have on the same roster as Gerald Everett, I just like the potential for him, especially seeing as in you really get to 10 points and you're like a tight end 1. So I think Gerald Everett could get there. We saw him get involved in the run game a little bit last week. And Geno Smith isn't necessarily stretching the field. So they should have a little bit more time to throw this week, but I see Gerald Everett getting a little bit more involved, possibly that 4, 5, 6 target range. I mean, he might get 50, 60 yards. I think he might be able to find the end zone, though, against the weak Jaguars defense. So
I can dig it. Tight end was tricky from the start position because I feel like I'm at a dead end. I'm going to get it wrong no matter what. And I had 2 guys come to mind. I feel like CJ Uzama, if you picked him up on waivers or if you have him, you're starting him. You're not dumb. But I went Higbee versus Houston. Now, game script could take him out of it. I like the 8 targets last week. I mean, we thought Detroit was just going to get walked over. But I've had this thing for Higbee all year, and I thought about Conklin. I really did. I just don't see it with him. So I'm going to go Higbee here as your tight end start. Doesn't feel great, but that's the fun part of tight end starts. It doesn't feel good. So, Jeremy, back to you. Let's pivot. Tight end sit, because if we are starting these guys that just don't feel good, if we're starting Everett, if we're starting Higbee, brothers from other mothers, who are we sitting then?
I'm on one that's kind of been a pleasant surprise this year. Jared Cook. I'm sitting him this week against New England. New England's very good against the tight end position. They only average about 8 points in PPR formats to the position in general. And Jared Cook, his average right now is just above that at about 9 points in the season. But we've seen him be pretty productive if he can get into the end zone. I just don't like the matchup this week. I think that Herbert's going to have to key in on Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, those types of guys. So I'm just out on Jared Cook. I just don't think he's going to get you. I mean, unless you start 2 tight ends in a league, then maybe. I just feel like he's going to kind of be around where his league average is, tight end 16, 18, somewhere in there. And it's just not really going to help you in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, unless you already roster like Darren Waller, he's your second tight end and you're forced into it if nobody else is on the waiver wire. But I'm not actively looking to start Jared Cook this week.
Absolutely. And that's that's kind of where I was at. Same thing as starts. I felt the same way about sits. Did I sit Evan Ingram? Ricky Seals-Jones has been actually pretty good not coming off the field. So what do you do with this like sits? Do you go Evan Ingram? Do you go Robert Tonyan? Because he sucks other than like 2 weeks out of the year. So I'm probably not touching Tonyan, man. I know we're sneak peeking into the preview we're about to do, but I don't want to rely on it. It is Aaron Rodgers. Oh, this hurts. I hate tight ends. Moral of the story, Evan Ingram breaks your heart every week. Robert Tonyan, will get 4 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers to redeem himself. Jeff, you feel good about any tight end sits, or are they all just gross?
I'm on the same wavelength as you with Higbee. The Texans are 31st in the league to tight end points. They've gotten roasted by tight ends, and it's like every single week a tight end's catching a touchdown for them. And so I could see Higbee having a big week and finally getting the end zone here a couple times. And then I landed in the same place with sit too. Ricky Seals-Jones is a guy that we've seen everything that we'd want to see, but the Broncos are 6th defensively against the tight end. And so it's one of those games that I think we know how Denver wants to play. They want to take the air out of the ball. They want to slow the game down and play a more conservative game. And I think Washington, after getting shredded defensively, they probably would be comfortable playing that same type and be able to allow their defense to kind of get back into it and that one is, I just worry about that one just being a mess of a game.
Tight ends, man. Just one of those.
Draft Kelsey and you're cool.
Yeah, you get Kelsey, you get Waller, things like that, you'll be okay. And if not, you just pray for the best.
Yeah, Darren Waller's been disappointing. I'm hoping we get Gronk back, by the way. And so that's been killing me because I have Gronk and Darren Waller in SFB, and I was kind of, early in the season was great, starting both of them, and they're both kind of smashing. And then lately, it's just been Gronk's been out, and I lost Waller last week. I lost my matchup by 5 because I had to play Ross Dwelly instead. So it's been rough.
That's the worst when you don't have a tight end and you have to look on waivers.
Yes.
And you're like, man, there's no tight end that even starts.
Please catch a touchdown, dude. Please catch a touchdown. Especially a late sit. And I screwed up. It was on me. I should have grabbed Foster Moreau. And that's a lesson that if you see a guy that is relied on, especially a guy like Darren Waller, that tight end is Oakland likes to use the tight end and Moreau's talented. If he pops up on the late week injury report, grab the backup. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah, look, that's Ricky Seals-Jones. Logan Thomas is heavily involved in that passing game in Washington, and not Ricky Seals-Jones isn't overly athletic even. It's not like he's crazily talented. It's just he's a product of the location. They like to target the tight end position, and he's doing enough to stay relevant. And like we said, 10 points basically gets you a tight end 1 finish. So some of these guys, these backups are very valuable.
Yeah.
And that's the way they're playing the game. They don't just change the way they're playing a game sometimes for the tight end, as we've seen with Monroe, with Seals-Jones. They're still targeting this position as part of the game plan. Real quick, one trade question. We'll kick it down to some start sits with the Thursday night preview. Dalvin Cook, Michael Pittman for Joe Mixon and Debo. Let's just say it's redraft. Full PPR. Dalvin Cook, Michael Pittman. Mixon's RB11. Debo's got to be up there too. Let's go to you first, Jeremy. Let's just say redraft. Are you going Dalvin Cook, Michael Pittman, or are you a Joe Mixon, Debo fan here?
I feel like this is definitely a roster construction decision, sort of. I think, though, the gaining that you're getting from Dalvin Cook, the jump from Dalvin Cook to Joe Mixon to me feels much larger than Debo Samuel to Michael Pittman. Especially Debo came out real hot, but he's definitely cooled off more to what he's probably going to be. A very good wide receiver 2 type play, where I feel like Michael Pittman's kind of the same. But to me, that jump, that Dalvin Cook to Joe Mixon is a big jump. We've seen Joe Mixon have good weeks, but majority of the time, Joe Mixon struggles to even finish as an RB2 some weeks, especially in that high passing volume offense that they've produced now. So for me, Dalvin Cook is the Vikings offense. That's my personal opinion. I feel like that runs through him. He gets the majority of the opportunities, and then they kind of divert off into Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. So anytime I can acquire Dalvin Cook, I'm in on it. So I like it. I think that jump for me is just bigger from Mixon to Cook than the fall off from Debo to Pittman at the current moment. So
and he's rocking Devonte Adams and Mike Williams, so he's pretty stacked at receiver position.
But it's never bad.
Do you feel like it's a big enough jump to get Cook from Mixon, Jeff, to give up Debo to take Pittman?
I think I'm a little bit higher on Debo than maybe Jeremy is. He still went for 7 for 100 and a touchdown in whatever that weather that was on Sunday. And I think he's a key part of this offense. I worry about we just haven't seen Dalvin Cook be Dalvin Cook is where I'm kind of landing right now. But Mixon's hurt already, and so having Adams and Mike Williams as your other wide receivers. If you've got Pittman, if you got other guys to cover, this week's going to be a week that you need to cover with Adams being out. If you've got other wide receivers to cover, then I'm more comfortable going with Cook. I think Jeremy hit it very well. Roster construction question. If I have a big drop off between Adams, Debo, and Mike Williams to my third wide receiver, if I've got a guy like Jalen Waddle's been productive, but like if I had drafted like Laviska Shenault or Robbie Anderson as my fourth wide receiver there, and I'm just getting nothing from that position at all, then I would lean more towards the Mixon Debo side.
And I think how many people you start too. Like if you start 3 wide receivers, that could make a big difference too.
Yes.
All right, one more before we get to the game. Are you starting the Eagles defense against Detroit or the Bears defense against San Francisco, Mr. Bell?
Well, Khalil Mack, I believe, is out. And so I think that I'm going to go with the Eagles defense because it just seems like the wheels are really falling off Jared Goff right now. And it's one of those, I think I'm going to roll the dice on the Eagles get 2 pick sixes off Jared Goff because it just falls apart in that game. So that's where I'm going to go there. Yeah, because I think the 49ers are going to be more conservative. I think Justin Fields is the way that he's struggled. That's a game that the 49ers could be winning big, and that Bears defense is something you don't want a part of.
Love it. Jeremy, same feel?
Yeah. I think the Khalil Mack's going to hurt the Bears. I think the 49ers will be able to run on him and not force Garoppolo to overextend his abilities.
Yes.
Where Detroit's going to have to throw, and Philadelphia's been a very decent defense against the pass. So with Darius Slay and all them, it could turn into a bad situation for Detroit.
All right, guys, thank you for everything. It is time for the Thursday night preview. I don't have a soundboard yet, so bam, let's go. We have the 6-1 Packers at the Arizona Cardinals, 7-0. Oh, baby, 50-point total. 6-point favorites are your Cardinals. I'm going to pivot to some questions for you guys. You guys can answer it yes, no. If you have to debate, if you have to say anything other than what's said, let me know. I'm going to start off QB2, Kyler Murray. This is a locked and loaded QB1, Week 8. Jeremy.
Agreed.
Jeff.
I'm in.
Kyler Murray.
I agree too.
Cooking with Crisco, MVP
Kyler Murray,
candidate.
you got him.
Yeah. Not much to talk about there. Aaron Rodgers, QB9. He had that one rough week against the Saints, and since then he's been on fire. Aaron Rodgers is a QB1 in Week 8. Jeremy?
I'm going to actually say no. I think he's just outside. I think he finishes like 13 or 14. I just think the lack of weapon. I know Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers and he can work and cook with anything. But I think that they tend to run or they're going to lean on Aaron Jones just because there's so many wide receivers missing. I think that Aaron Jones sees a bigger game. And I think Rodgers still is a good game. I mean, I don't fault you for starting him because the upside's definitely there. But I think he does finish outside just barely. Definitely top 15, though.
Okay, so not seeing him as a top 12 quarterback. So let's pivot back to that. Are you starting a Joe Burrow against the Jets defense? over Aaron Rodgers?
I would, yes.
Okay. Jeff.
Yeah, I would too.
QB9, Aaron Rodgers.
Uh,
No
I'm-
Devonte Adams. Lazard
We've
is best
seen-
friends out.
Yeah, man. We've seen how much they use Devonte Adams. We've seen this offense when he's been out, and so it's not been an explosive offense when he's been out. I remember the Detroit game. I think it might have been 2 years ago, even when Devonte Adams was out, and it was one of those. It was just quiet the entire game, and then Rodgers exploded in the fourth quarter, but that was against Detroit, and Lazard went crazy. But I just think that we've seen this offense have a very limited ceiling. I just feel like the Cardinals are going to pound them. I really do. It's just kind of one of those that it's just it's a tough game for Green Bay with all these things coming out on a short week.
Okay. All right. We've got a kicker question. I don't think I've gotten a kicker question since I've been doing fantasy football live streams all year. So this is
Kickers.
I love it. Justin, bring it, baby. We have a kicker question. Bullock on the Titans. The Titans, Tennessee, or McPherson on Cleveland. What are your thoughts here, Jeremy, our kicker guru expert?
I am? Oh, boy. Can I phone a friend?
Exactly. Oh, man, kickers.
Man, that's tough. I can see both having decent kicker weeks. I think both teams score a lot of points, which is going to lead you to pretty decent kicker points. I'll take Bullock on the basis that he had a pretty good week last week. And I see the Titans maybe having to kick a couple more field goals, which are a little bit more valuable than the extra points. I think Cincinnati just kind of runs all over New York or the Jets, and I see McPherson seeing more like extra points, and he's going to need a lot of those. So I'll take Bullock. I think he has more chances of kicking actual field goals than extra points.
Now we have McPherson. Excuse me when I said Cleveland. It was McPherson's on Cincinnati. So
Yeah.
They are playing the Jets, and we might not have Zach Wilson. I don't know if that helps or hurts. Does that change your answer?
No, yeah, I think I was going with Cincinnati. I knew he was on Cincinnati, but I think they score more touchdowns, which actually hurts a kicker because he's only kicking extra points, which usually, depending on your scoring format, is 1 point, where the field goal usually is more because they get plus for the yardages in most formats. So that's where I'm going with Bullock because I think he will have more opportunities to kick actual field goals than the extra points. So
love it. That's why you're our expert guru kicker. Jeff, any thoughts here on Bullock and on Tennessee or McPherson for Cincinnati?
I'm going to go with McPherson because I kind of think he might have a better chance at getting more field goals because this feels like one of those games that they score 4 touchdowns, they have more touchdowns, but they also bang in 3 field goals because the Jets are just inept with Mike White at quarterback. Bullock, I think that I don't know anything about kickers, but Colts Titans, I think that could be a touchdown game back and forth, maybe a little bit. Whereas I just feel like Cincinnati will continue to pour it on, and maybe they'll let up a little bit and start kicking field goals in the fourth quarter. I do feel like that happens sometimes.
fair.
Okay. There's your answer. What do I want to do here? Tennessee's offense. I think I might go Bullock just because of Tennessee's offense. I can't guarantee they're going to get it in the end zone. But it comes with risk. Either way, I'd say, yeah, very close. Justin, I love Carmelo Anthony. Hopefully we were able to help you out on there. Let's keep going, though. We got more. Give me more, give me more. Let's talk running backs. Aaron Jones, RB7, 28 targets in 7 games, 26 catches. We already know he's an RB1. You're starting him if he's playing. Jeremy, is he going to come out guns a-blazes and just get a ton of receptions this game?
I certainly hope that whoever is listening is not playing Aaron Jones. I anticipate a pretty big game from Aaron Jones. I think, like I had alluded to there before, the lack of the receiver options means that they're going to, I believe, lean on Aaron Jones. Carolina's not terrible, or Arizona's not terrible against the running back position, but Aaron Jones is a freak. So I'm in on it. I think Aaron Jones could see another one of those big 3-4 touchdown games. I mean, 4 is really a lot, but I could see him having 2 to 3 touchdowns in this game. And they lean on him pretty heavy if they're going to try and stay in this game, even in the passing game. So I'm in on Aaron Jones. I think he's definitely a top 10 finish this week. So
Jeff, Aaron Jones, is he going to get the target share?
Yeah, fire him up. It could be like we saw with Alvin Kamara the other night, where he was the only receiving option for the Saints, and so they could just feed him there. So, yeah, I'm in on Aaron Jones. And I'm going to say right now, if you have a roster spot, Kylan Hill is a guy that I might keep an eye on because I think that if anything were to happen to Jones, I think that he's going to get the passing work. And so that's a guy that is a deep roster grab. I worry about if they're going to pile it on Jones, he's taking hits. If something goes wrong, you might be in a situation. And, sometimes out there are leagues too, where you can play a guy on Thursday and then drop him still and grab another guy. I'm just saying I've seen it before. And so if you happen to be in one of those type of situations, he might be a good stash to see and make sure that Jones makes it through the game. Okay.
We're talking RBs. Let's talk A.J. Dillon. Only 2 games over 10 points. 3 games over 8 carries. Is this maybe a spot that you maybe pound the rock a little more with A.J. Dillon where he gets a little bit more work this week, Jeremy?
maybe. I feel like Jeff had alluded to, I think you might see a little bit more Kylan Hill this week. A little bit more in the passing game. But yeah, I mean, I would think he sees more work. I don't know if I'm starting him. Maybe as a flex in like a deep league. But yeah, he's going to see a little bit more just because I think the lack of receiver is going to hurt. So they're going to have to run the ball a little bit more or use them in the passing game. So a little bit, but
Deep
not
flex.
super excited.
A.J. Dillon over 8 carries. Do you see him getting over 8 carries tomorrow night, Jeff?
I'm out on A.J. Dillon. I got burnt last week. Full disclosure, in SFB, I talk about the close loss. A.J. Dillon was a panic start with the Week 7 by Mageddon going on, and he saw his lowest snaps of the season. He fumbled. I'm just not comfortable playing him as a flex play. I think he's sticking right now as handcuff only to me after what we saw last week. And so if you're desperate, but at the same time, I just think you have better odds of grabbing a random wide receiver that could catch it 45 yards and a touchdown and get you to 12, 13 points. Whereas I just don't buy that for Dillon in this game. I worry about game script big time with him.
All right. Fair enough. I don't think anybody's excited to start
2 touchdowns, but
yeah, if you're lucky. Let's talk Cardinals running backs. Chase Edmonds, RB 16. Over 10 points in all but one, but no touchdowns. 15 for 81 versus the Texans. Are you starting to panic a little bit, Jeremy, on Chase Edmonds here?
I will say I am not panicking. I kind of saw it coming. I was never super bullish on Chase Edmonds, as he's never been a red zone running back in his entire career. So we all of a sudden thought that he was going to be with Kenyon Drake disappearing. I always kind of had a fear that James Conner would be like a touchdown vulture, and he seems to be. So, yeah, I mean, if you were super high on Chase Edmonds, I'd be panicking. But I just think we see what he is. He's in between the 20s, productive receiving back, can score touchdowns from outside the 20 if he gets a big play, but he's just not – he's not that guy. So
he sounds like an RB too.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Guaranteed. A safe RB2. He's safe. He gets you 10 points, but
Jeff, safe RB2. Would you be starting Chase Edmonds, the safe RB2, or would you be going for the touchdown? RB21, James Conner, over 10 carries in 6 of 7 games and 6 touchdowns. Who is your preference here if you had both for Thursday night?
Now, I was somebody that I believed in Chase Edmonds, and early season was great. I think that we saw everything that we wanted to see. We didn't see the touchdowns, but it was kind of being used like Alvin Kamara or like as Austin Eckler. Then he got hurt, and I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think that he can get back. And I think that that's been kind of overlooked maybe because he's been playing through injury, and he is the type of guy that I think might be more susceptible. But Connor's the play right now. He's outscored him in the last 5 games, I believe. And so, yeah, you're just talking about Connor gets a touchdown and catches 2 balls and rushes for 45 yards without Edmonds getting a touchdown. It's hard to beat that.
Okay.
I feel like this offense kind of turned into the Chiefs, though, too. That's what hurts CEH, I believe, and even Darrell Williams at this moment. The offense is so explosive. I mean, we're seeing Kyler Murray toss 20, 30-yard bombs to A.J. Green, Christian Kirk, Dustin, or DeAndre Hopkins. Like, they're just not – they're scoring from so far away. The running backs just aren't getting that touchdown volume, even, like, in the red zone, like the rushing opportunity, so –
It's the Bills offense too.
Yeah.
And that's
same thing there too.
But the reality of it is if you've got an elite quarterback and you've got elite wide receivers, what do you do? You're not going to run the ball. Like what? Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to do it in the climate of the NFL right now. It's just, I completely agree. That's a great point. And that's something that I've kind of looked at with these backs. Chase Edmonds is a guy that early in the offseason, his value was great. And I got him in like the 16th, 15th round of a startup back in February. Great. And so it's one of those, as he came up into like a 6th round guy, like I was just out at that price. And I think that you hit it great. That's like, I was out on Clyde Edwards-Helaire because we see the same thing. And I was kind of out. The Bills backs were kind of more reasonably priced, but even them, it's just, they just feel very similar. He just feels like Devin Singletary. I feel like that Chase Edmonds does. It's just like that type of thing.
It's sad.
All right. Let's we're going to get one quick trade question. It's kind of it's more or less playing the Kittle time bomb. If you're desperate at RB, Darrell Williams, Mike Davis for Kittle, was that a smart trade by Mechie the Goat?
That was
Jeremy, this is redraft, obviously. This guy's probably hurting at running back, and he's got, let's say, Kittle on IR. Or, he traded Mike Davis and Darrell Williams for Kittle. So probably he's doing okay at the RB position. Would you have made this move, Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't even think I need to know formats. I'm in. I mean, Dynasty, whether it's Dynasty or redraft, I'm in on it. I don't see much. I mean, once CEH comes back, I feel like he's going to kind of take over from Darrell Williams. And like we said, and Mike Davis is kind of being phased out. So we've seen what George Kittle can be. He's been kind of injured the last couple of years, but when healthy, George Kittle's a dominant force. And especially at, like we had mentioned, a very tight end landscape. So.
All right. He had Mixon, Henderson, Swift. I mean, he's not hurting. His tight end was trash. Good move, Jeff.
Great move. Great trade.
Great move. Let's keep it going. Let's talk those night moves, not Bob Seger's night moves. Thursday night moves at the receiver position. We don't have Adams. We don't have Lazard. Randall Cobb, wide receiver 2, 3, or 4. Jeremy.
3.
3.
Low end 3.
A lot of 3s out there.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, or wide receiver 4, Randall Cobb?
4. So Equanimeous St. Brown has been gaining in that offense, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling is coming back. And I just think that we've seen Rodgers target MVS early in the season, and so I just don't think there's any real ceiling on Cobb.
All right, fair enough. So since you did say MVS, you did say St. Brown, you said we're talking Cobb here. Out of the 3, if this is a desperation spot, say you're just banged up, you're having to pick one of these 3 off of waivers to start. Jeremy, you're starting MVS, Cobb, or St. Brown?
If MVS is definitely playing, I'm taking MVS. He's the deep threat. He's the closest to replacing what Devonte Adams gives you. So I'm going to take him just on the big shot type ability. Once you get into the red zone, like I said, I think you're going to be looking at him leading on like Tunyon or Aaron Jones just because Rodgers trusts them more probably than St. Brown. So I'm going to take the guy that could give us, like Jeff had said, might explode for 2-3 catches, but 80 yards with a long touchdown. So I'll take that.
Jeff, are you right there on track with MVS as well?
I am. He was the guy early in the season, and I look back at the Detroit game. He had a bad game, but if you watch the game, Rodgers just missed him. But where they used him, Jeremy hit it exactly right with the deep shot. This is one of those that he can catch a 60-yard touchdown. He's got a 13-point play right out of the gate. But at the same time, they used him down at the goal line against Detroit, and Rodgers missed him on a short throw. And they used him in a wide receiver screen like later in the game. So there's a little bit more creative usage with MVS than what we've seen in the past. There's glimpses of it. So I could see this being the type of thing where if he's healthy, he's ready, he's the guy that Rodgers trusts the most, and he just gets fed.
Love it. Yeah, I see the point, man. Like you said, you're looking for that big play that gets you a bunch of points, and MVS might be that call. Let's talk Arizona receivers though, because they have a ton. It was crazy going back and looking at how good these guys have played. Nuke obviously started off a little bit slow, but still wide receiver 12 on the year. I don't think you're doubting this guy, especially the last couple games. Let's talk Christian Kirk, though. Let's talk A.J. Green, because these guys, wide receiver 27, wide receiver 33, 14 points a game, 12 points a game. These guys have been on point and in the zone. My question is, since they are playing like wide receiver threes, do you think Zach Ertz hinders their wide receiver 3 upside? Jeremy?
No. If anybody, I think it's going to hurt Christian Kirk a little more. I think AJ Green's been doing this with 6 targets a game, weekly. He just sees 6 targets. It's just big plays. He has a extremely high yards per target, and he's getting touchdowns. So I feel like AJ Green's going to be all right, just because he's doing all this on a low target volume. It's not like he's seeing 10 targets a game where something's going to get taken away. I think Ertz is going to hurt more like the Kirks and the Rondell Moores. So I don't see it hurting Green, but I see it hurting Kirk a little bit.
So would you be starting Green over Kirk?
Personally, yes. The upside's not as high as Kirk with Green, but I feel like the floor is a lot safer than AJ Green. And for most of my teams, at least that I feel that I have AJ Green on, he's kind of a depth piece. So I feel like he's a safe flex play. And then I'm going to play somebody who has higher upside than Christian Kirk, like say Devonte Smith or somebody like that. And because that's just how Green's been all season. He's been a safe 9-10 point guy. So I am personally.
Popes is killing it, ladies and gentlemen, at Popes FFH. If you guys need any fantasy football intel, as well as at For Whom J Bell Tolls. This guy's killing it as well. Jeff, Christian Kirk, AJ Green. How are you feeling about these guys tomorrow night? Wide receiver 3s. Are you starting these guys, and who is your preference?
Christian Kirk's a guy that I feel like every time that I rely on him, I get burnt. It just seems like it's been over the last couple of years. It's like every single time I think that he's going to do something, I just get roasted. And so I'm going to go with AJ Green. I think Jeremy made some great points about the big plays that we've seen. Again, it's almost like the Valdez-Scantling play where you get a 35-yard touchdown out of AJ Green. He catches two other balls, and you've got 4 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown, and you're thrilled. So I think that's the type of play.
I can dig it. AJ Green here as well. Did we all forget about Christian Kirk when we saw Rondell Moore as this dynasty darling out of Purdue? We were so excited for this guy. And we've seen little flashes. He's got the juice. We've seen it. Jeff, I'm going to go to you first. Let's just go from a dynasty outlook. Rondell Moore.
I'm still all in buying Rondell Moore. I think that room could clear out very quickly. I believe Kirk is a free agent after this year, I want to say. And then AJ Green is obviously AJ Green. He's up there in years. And Hopkins has kind of some diminished production this year, and it might be that there's just other targets to use, but we kind of are starting to hit that downside of that age curve. So I could see it, and I go back to Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and when he was in college, he had Wes Welker, and he used him all over the field, and I kind of felt like that's why they took Rondell Moore, to use him like how Texas Tech used Wes Welker, and just keep feeding him all over the field in the spread offense. And I think that's what we're going to see here in the next couple of years.
Love it. Always get it's LaVisca and Rondell. It's like I like both of their skill sets. I want them both. I feel like both of them can succeed. And then it's like, sometimes I get a little – I'm more hype on Rondell probably at this point. Jeremy, we see these threads you get to when you're getting ready for draft time, things like this. Rondell Moore, dynasty perspective.
Yeah, I'm all in, like Jeff said. I feel like they drafted him to be their Deebo Samuel. They've seen the success that Deebo Samuel had in San Francisco. Cliff Kingsbury's very offensive minded and like forefront looking. And like Jeff had said, Wes Welker is a great comparison. And the room is old. AJ Green could definitely move on. And the best thing is they can ease him in to the role. You know what I mean? We've seen the glimpses. We've seen how he gets used. And he's kind of gadgety, but like he's better than a gadget wide receiver. He's not just that. He can run routes. He does all the wide receiver things you need a wide receiver to do well. It's just that right now his role is that gadget guy. And like you said, he's just explosive. He's a workout freak. I mean, this guy's stronger than half the guys that are 2 times his size. So I'm all in. I think Rondell Moore in this offense in a year or two could be extremely deadly. So I'm in. You could see what Deebo's doing this year in a couple of years from Rondell Moore. So
love it. Let's wrap it up real quick. We got tight ends, and then we'll get to a couple more questions, get the truck out of here. Robert Tonyan, Big Bob, tight end 21 on the season. Are we seeing a tight end 1 streamer this week, Jeff Bell?
I think Arizona is the best defense against tight ends, and they're going to be focused. Isaiah Simmons is a beast, and I just think that they're going to take Tonyan out of the game plan because I think going in, you would think Tonyan is going to be the guy that Rodgers would want to lean on. So if I'm scheming up a defense, the 2 guys I'm taking out would be Aaron Jones and Robert Tonyan, and say beat me with the other guys.
And that's something people need to hear because everybody's streaming Tonyan this week. After the touchdown last week, no Adams. Everybody's just saying this is a smash spot. So it's good we hear that Arizona's defense ain't a joke. Jeremy, thoughts on Tonyan here? RB or tight end 1 streamer? Are you a little more hesitant like Jeff?
I'm actually in on it. I agree with what Jeff said because he's right. Arizona is the best against the defense, and as any defensive coach would do, you're going to scheme against their impromptu top option in the passing game. But I'm going to trust LaFleur and think that he can kind of scheme something up to get Tonyan a little bit open, at least some separation. Most likely, I'm hoping more so in the red zone. I think he sees a touchdown just because of the lack of options down there. And that's what Tonyan's always been. He's been touchdown dependent. He gets a very small target volume. So I'm not expecting him to be all of a sudden like a Kyle Pitts game where he puts up 150 yards. But I think he gets a touchdown, and I think he gets that 30, 40 yards where it gets him into that low-end tight end 1 range. I'm not expecting a big game, but just I still think they'll do enough to get him into that. So
I can dig it. Let's move on to Zach Ertz. Tight end 12 on the year. Surprise, surprise. Doesn't matter. He still produces. Guys, is there a lot left in the tank? Because if you've got Zach Ertz at this point, you're probably starting him at the tight end position. Jeff, Zach Ertz in Dynasty. Is this maybe a buy for a tight end 1?
No, I wouldn't be buying him. I liked him in the offseason because I thought that maybe it would just be 1 down year. But I just don't think that he's not as explosive as he was before. He's just not the athlete that he was before. He's made plays. And so I think that you're not, for the price that you paid for him in Dynasty, if you acquired him this offseason, I think you're pretty happy. But he's not a guy that I'm trying to get into right now.
Jeremy, Zach Ertz, because everybody's starting him this week. Is this guy risen back from the dead in Dynasty?
Depending on price. I think he has a year or 2 of some production, especially in a landscape that's just really bad. He's a really good athlete. Jeff had alluded to it. I mean, he's not as good as he was at one point. But we've seen Jared Cook be somewhatly viable at times. So if I can get him cheap enough, I mean, I'm not paying a lot, but maybe like a toss in or like an add-on piece in a different deal. Sure. But I'm not actually looking. There's so many more upside plays at tight end that I would rather try and acquire or in just a better offense that's not as deep, I guess we'll say. You know what I mean? He's still like the fourth or fifth option in that offense. It doesn't. I mean, yeah, he's still good, but I mean, you're still seeing him throw to Kirk or Green or Hopkins or giving the ball to Connor or Kyler Murray scrambling in the red zone. So it's not like he's going to see what he got that touchdown. He scored last week, right? I don't see him like weekly being reliable that way that you're paying for him.
That's the thing. He's 30. It's not like he's a baby. He's not a baby.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 1 or 2 years, you know, and
right.
And someone's going to see this and they're going to try and price gouge you. Be like, well, he's on Arizona now, so I want a first round pick, and it's not worth it.
Yeah,
that's
the
point that I want to brought up too, because everybody's going to be excited. He just went to Arizona's offense, and so that's why I don't think he's a buy right now.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, guys, we kicked button, took names on these matchups on start sits. I have one Buffalo question, but I'm going to get real quick to it. Gronk versus New Orleans. Kenny Gainwell versus Detroit. You must start one in a flex. Let's just say PPR. Jeremy.
Is Gronk playing?
He's been practicing, I believe.
Let's just say he's playing.
I mean, if he plays, I'm starting Gronk. I just think that Tom Brady really likes to target him in the red zone. So his touchdown upside is just huge. We saw it at the beginning of the year. And Mike Williams has been the benefactor of him being out. Or Mike Evans, not Williams, sorry. But I think if Gronk plays, I'm starting Gronk.
All right. I can dig it. Jeff, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I am the same place. It sounds like Antonio Brown might be headed for IR. It sounds like his injury is pretty bad. And so he's almost certainly out, I would think. And so if Gronk's back, he's a top 3 option, and Brady loves feeding him in the red zone.
My question is who's his other tight end? Like Gronk's at flex.
Yeah. All right, we got one more trade question. Debo and Hunt for Barkley. Debo and Hunt for Barkley. Is RBs or J-Rob, Kenyon Drake? Halfway depth. So are you trading Debo and Hunt for Barkley? Looks like this is a redraft, if I'm correct.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. I mean, if it's redraft, yeah. I think Barkley's closer to being back than Kareem Hunt from what it sounds like, so I would take it.
Yeah, Barkley's not on IR, didn't think, and so I know Hunt was.
There's an outside chance that Barkley plays this week, I think I saw. But then there's also people saying he doesn't play until after the week 11 bye. So his injury and what it actually is, and his timetable's very gray. But I think Kareem Hunt, didn't they say he's out like 6 or 8 weeks?
I believe so.
I think his is like pretty long term.
Yeah.
Not season, but like long.
Yeah, Barkley's kind of in that zone where I don't think he's quite to the Mixon zone from last year, where we just weren't quite sure. But obviously, we know what the injury is, but I still am going to go with the upside of Barkley. If he's healthy by the playoffs, this is the type of deal where if I have a winning record right now and I'm able to make a little bit of the risk, I would rather have Barkley when the playoffs hit. If I am losing right now, I think that I need the immediate production from Debo.
All right.
Yeah. Not only that, I think the Giants have an easier strength of schedule in like that playoff week.
Yeah.
Frame than Cleveland does. So.
All right.
But I think that's an important point to point out that as we're getting closer to the playoffs, some of these trades that you're looking at, you're not worried about the next couple weeks here. You're worried about how's this guy going to line up for the playoff schedule.
Absolutely. It just ran like cats and dogs here in Florida today. Real quick, because you guys are both Bills fans, I'm a Cowboys fan. I don't want to talk necessarily Super Bowls, but I want to talk Bills Mafia. Jeremy, I have 2 questions for you. You answer them. Give me your favorite Buffalo Bills player besides Josh Allen. This can be of all time. And your favorite Bills moment, or the moment that made you a Bills fan, or why you're a Bills fan.
I'm a Bills fan mainly. My family's always been Bills fans. Ever since I was little. I mean, every picture of me as an infant is wearing a Bills onesie or shirt or something. I'm just always been a football fan, and you know, I mean, growing up in Buffalo, so you know, it's kind of built into the society here. So that was pretty easy to make it a Bills fan. And it's been rough, you know, ever since the Super Bowls, which I was alive for, but I was like 1. So I was born a couple days before the first one. And then after that, I've been alive for all of them. My sister was born in the last one, so she's the reason that they've never been back. So that's my blame. But yeah, and my favorite Bills player, I would probably say, I probably like Bruce Smith all time. He was just a great character, kind of on and off the field, and was just ahead of his time. You know, he was very into keeping the fitness up, and I just really liked what he brought to the game. So,
all right. Well, Jeff, we see Bruce Smith, we see Jim Kelly. I believe that's Andre Reed. Who is your Bills player of all time in your moment?
So my guy is Thurman Thomas. I got a signed Thurman Thomas football behind me. I've got Thurman Thomas right behind me. I just loved Thurman Thomas as a kid. I was old enough that I was like 7 to 10 age range when the Super Bowls were happening. So I remember the Dallas Super Bowls. And so those are hard memories. But Thurman was my guy. I just like that versatile all around running back. And so being a fantasy guy, I write about the running backs than Debbie Primer. I tend to like that position. And so a guy that can do it all. And just growing up with him he's my guy. The moment that stands out to me would be when Tyler actually didn't even involve the Bills, but it did. The Bills were not on the field. When Tyler Boyd caught the 4th down touchdown a couple years ago against the Ravens in week 17, and the Bills had already won. They had done what they needed to do, but they needed that play. And that was one of those that, Andy Dalton had to go the length of the field and get a touchdown. And as a Bills fan, you're like, well, I already know how this is going to end. And then all of a sudden, Tyler Boyd broke free. He scored. It was like a 35, 40-yard touchdown, beat the Ravens. The Bills went to the playoffs, and it was the first time in nearly 20 years that they made the playoffs. And I a grown man, I cried when that happened. So that's a moment that I just remember right now.
Love it.
No lie, real quick. I know it's going to extend the show. Watching that game with my new father-in-law, no lie, this man ran outside, tackled a snowman that me and my fiance made as adults. Don't judge us. But tackled a snowman and crashed the New Year's party that was going on next door because he was so excited from that moment. It was a great moment. I loved it. I thought the same thing, especially against that Ravens defense back then. That was a little bit better than they are now. I was like, ugh, but that was great. I love that moment. So sorry.
Fandom, baby. It's not all fantasy. It's more. And that's what dude, Fred Jackson, was that guy not just like the Terminator? He was always in, and he always like lunch pail type of running back. He did his job.
Stevie Johnson.
At
his time, route runner, man. That guy was underrated for a long time. There's a lot of good singular Bills players over the years. They just never were able to really put it together. Eric Moulds, another one you can go through.
Yeah, Eric. Whew. All right, let's go to bed. Put the women, children to sleep. Do all that. Jeremy, dude. First off, thank you for coming on the show. This is your second appearance. I appreciate everything you bring to this community. You're a big reason why I enjoy Twitter. Is your Twitter page. If they want more, Jeremy, where can they find it?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. Like you alluded to, I'm pushing as much content as I can. Just random stuff, stats, some breakdowns, answer any questions. Feel free to send them over. If you're interested in reading and writing, I am writing over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. You can find some articles over there, as well as at Yards Per Fantasy.
Whoa, love it. Jeremy's a stud muffin supreme. Give him a follow, a like, a listen, everything in between. Jeff, whether you've talked about Justice Hill, whether you've talked about Moali Cox, you've always grabbed my attention. Who is the other one? The Atlanta Quadri Olison. You always have a way to bring me into your heart through your writing, through your personality, which I think is a lost form in social media. So thank you. and getting to know you. You're just a stud. Like I said with Jeremy, good mother truckers. Jeff, you do it all. If they want more of you, tell them about it, baby. Brag a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Devy Royale is my baby. We're on at 9:30 on Tuesday nights, and we do Devy content, college football content. We get into gambling. We do a little bit of everything on that show, and I love it. Christian Williams, C. Williams NFL is my co-host, as well as Kevin Coleman, Du Bois at Du Bois 22. There's an underscore in there too, by the way. But they're great guys, and so follow them on Twitter. And then I do another show at 7:30 called Coming Off the Edge. It's a lot of fun. It's just kind of, we hang out, we talk about fantasy, we talk about nothing at all. Just another group of friends. You can find my written content mostly on Fantasy Pros right now. We do the weekly Devy Primer. I've got some other articles coming out through Fantasy Pros, some different side projects that I'm working on. I do a lot of behind the scenes editing work over there right now, so that's not really coming out, so you can't find me there. But it's a good chance that if you're reading an article, I might have touched it in some form. But at the same time, and I've got some stories up on football guys too, so you can check that out.
Love it. Jeff, Jeremy, and Maddie. Macho Maddie had to leave a little bit early. He wasn't prepared to go the full Monty. Guys, www.ffaffair.com. I'm at Matty Daddy FF. As always, it has been a pleasure. My treasure.